Welcome, lovely listeners, to SoulStirred, stories of growth and the human experience. I'm Emily Garcia.
And I'm Kasey Clark.
We will be your guides on this journey. We are so glad you are here.
Each week, we'll come together, sometimes with other incredible thinkers, creators, and adventurers, to generously share stories of self-discovery, recovery, triumph, and what it means to live a life on purpose.
No matter where you are in your own journey, connection is here for you at SoulStirred.
Settle in, take a deep breath in, and let's inspire each other.
Welcome to SoulStirred. Welcome back, SoulStirred listeners. Today we are here with Amber Stevens. Amber is a national board certified health and wellness coach, a licensed massage therapist, and a mindful eating instructor. For the last 17 years, her award-winning work has helped hundreds of people live a boundless life, free from physical and emotional pain. Amber is also the founder of Boundless Body and Wellness in West Arvada in Colorado, which is an integrated health and wellness center. She's an international speaker and an author of Food, Feelings, and Freedom, The End to Emotional Eating. In addition, Amber is a guest instructor at Nutrition Therapy Institute. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Hi, Amber. We're so excited to have you.
Hi.
Amber is a newer friend of mine and Emily's, and the three of us have in common that we work in the space of helping people create wellness and wholeness, living in a way that is aligned and integrated. And as many of our listeners have learned, part of my truth and my story is I have struggled a lot in my life, especially in my relationship with food. I'm still trying to detangle wires around that particular relationship. And food is an interesting thing, isn't it? It's for me, interesting in that it's got like power. And it can be a signal into like the health of our relationship with food can be a signal into the health of our relationship with the rest of our body. And so, Amber, I'm excited for this conversation today and to talk to you more. I've read your book, Food, Feelings, and Freedom. I learned a lot from it, and I am practicing the things that you suggest in it. And I'm thrilled to share you with our listeners today.
Thank you.
Tell us, just get us started with your story and your relationship with food and how this journey began for you.
Yeah. So, if we go back quite a ways with my original relationship with food, it was an interesting childhood growing up where my family was, my mom mostly was always on a diet. And so my relationship with food was kind of broken right from the start, only because I didn't really know what food was. I like to tell people that, in the major food groups of fat, carbohydrates, protein, there was also a fourth food group of calories, or at least that's the way that I grew up with it, because, you couldn't eat this. It had too many calories. Don't touch that. It's calories. Oh, those calories went right to my hips. And so calories growing up for me was this thing that was like, ooh, it has to be avoided and watched for. I never learned to read labels. I didn't know what my body needed. Food was something that, out of necessity. You ate it. It was there. And so then fast forward a few more years later, I'm in my teens and I'm fainting due to hypoglycemia. That's what I was diagnosed with. And so my diet got a little bit better because I had to start understanding how sugar played in my body and what blood sugar is. But my doctor at that time basically just said, all right, you're hypoglycemic, don't eat sugar. And if you do, because I was 14 at the time, if you do, eat some meat or something with it. Okay. So that didn't change my lifestyle into healthy eating. I ate cheeseburgers with my soda now, right? Sugar with meat. Like I still had these bad food eating combinations, but I was learning to kind of manage my blood sugar high and lows. And so let's jump ahead again. Now I'm in my late 20s and early 20s. I moved to Seattle for my first career in journalism, actually. And I was introduced to this whole world of organic food. And it just blew my mind. I thought, organic, isn't all food organic? Like, aren't all vegetables organic? And then I
Mhm.
started learning, no, there's this thing called conventional grown foods and organic grown foods, and there's pesticides and herbicides and all these things that's in our food. And I started
Mhm.
thinking about food differently. What is it? Why does it matter? What does it matter for me? And I started
Mm.
realizing that sugar in my system is something that I need to really keep minimized. And I need to balance my diet in a much better way. So, honestly, from my early 20s to mid 30s, I felt like I was doing great. And here at this
Mm.
point, I have transitioned my career into health and wellness. I became a
Mhm.
massage therapist. I opened my own practice. I also became a health coach at that point. I mean, I am helping people to live this healthy, wonderful lifestyle. And
Yeah.
then I have children and I'm married, and life is just this wonderful thing. But suddenly, I'll never forget the night I go to check on my young son. He woke up crying, and all I remember was reaching up to his bunk bed, and then I wake up on the floor as my husband's holding my hand. I had passed out. And I
Mm.
thought, huh, I I don't know what that was, but it had to be my blood sugar, because remember at 14 I was fainting because of blood sugar. So I thought, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm older, my blood sugar has changed. I got to figure this out. But it didn't feel the same way that a blood sugar crash did. I was awake and then I was out. And then it continued to happen 3 more times. And of
Mm.
course, I go to the doctor. What is going on? I've decided,
Mhm.
from Dr. Google, that I have a brain tumor. This is the end of
Mm.
things.
Yeah, that's what
Mhm.
we
Right.
do.
Like,
Mhm.
don't Google stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
So the doctors do all the scans. I see all the specialists, brain, heart, gut, everything. On paper, I should be extremely healthy. Yet I'm fainting. Something is terribly wrong. And that's very scary, especially with young children. I mean, it was instantaneous. My blood sugar fainting was different in that it's coming on. You feel a little
Mhm.
shaky, maybe you're hangry, like, I need food. This was
Mhm.
just boom, blacked out, waking up somewhere.
Yeah.
So my cardiologist decided you must have something called vasovagal syncope, which is a fancy way to say the vagus nerve over or underreacts, and then I faint. Syncope is faint.
Mm.
I said, okay, never heard of this. What does it mean? What do I do? And he said, well, there's not a lot of studies on it, so good luck.
Mm.
There's no medicine,
Thanks.
there's no surgery, just try to stay awake, I guess. And that's not how I respond to things. I definitely have more of a research brain. I'm like, I'm going to figure this
Mhm.
out. I'm going to find my solutions. So that's what I did. I started going down all the rabbit holes of different what is vasovagal syncope? What is the vagus nerve? How many people have it? On and on. And largely, what it kept coming back to is that the vagus nerve is highly affected by stress. So I had to pause for a little bit and decide, okay, where is my stress level?
Mm.
And when I did, I think that may have been one of the first times I had actually stopped and looked at my stress level. And I'm actually feeling
Mm.
myself get a little teary eyed while I talk about it, because I think, especially as women, working women, moms, we don't stop. And I think
Mhm.
we have this little part of us that's like, we can't stop. Too many
Mhm.
people rely on us, especially in this
Yeah.
caregiving role that I was in, both with work and life.
Yeah.
So I had to pause and look at, this is my stress. And it was high. It was, this one goes to 11. If anybody spinal tap
Mhm.
friends out there,
Mhm.
this one was up there. And I thought, okay, if stress is affecting my vagus nerve to the point that I'm fainting at unknown times, this is unacceptable. And I need to look at what's going on in my life with my stress. So that became the first point, was just understanding stress. And in
Mhm.
understanding that stress, I started to understand where my emotional capacities were or were not, how I was giving
Mhm.
of myself. And then we got into this other layer of emotional eating. And it was a huge aha moment for me, and also a huge surprise to realize that I was an emotional eater, because I
Mm,
didn't fit what is like the stereotype emotional eater. I was not largely overweight. I was not sneaking food at 2 a.m. I was not, driving through a drive through and like chowing down on burgers and french fries in my car before I went into a house or something.
mhm,
That's the stereotype. That's the
mhm,
emotional eater. And that wasn't me. But when I really related stress response, which is cortisol response with the nervous system, the emotions and how they play out, I realized, wow, I actually am an emotional eater. I am using bags of chocolate to cope in situations that I feel like I have no control over, because I have
mm,
control over that bag of chocolate.
mhm,
And the sugar
mhm,
in it makes me feel good. Right. So I
mhm,
am using food to cope through my pieces. I was using food to manage my feelings of procrastination. Right. I
mhm,
was using food in ways to change how I was feeling in the moment, which is really more the true definition of emotional eating. And we
mm,
all have emotions. So, really, we're all emotional eaters. And I wrote the book because I had so many realizations about myself, both in how I was raised and how I responded to certain situations, and how food did or did not help me in all those situations, but more so
mhm,
how our brain and our gut had a lot to say in the food that we are choosing and how we cope with
mhm,
our emotions. So I wanted to
mhm,
write this information to get it out there, because I started making some pretty simple but very effective changes that has
mhm.
now, to this day, I think it's been 8 years since I have fainted last. I like to say that I have control over my vasovagal secretly.
Yeah,
Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but at least I'm not fainting at that point. I do
yeah.
know that I have far better control over my stress, and
Mhm,
I make way better choices in the foods that I choose, and I know why I choose them.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what the story that you're telling, all of the parts to it. And the thing that I hear that I want to highlight is that part of what got you crosswise in your relationship with food was the attempts to control it,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
like what your mom was doing with diet,
Mm-hmm.
like what your doctor suggested you do with your glycemic index. Trying to control it from the external towards the internal did not work.
Yes.
And then what did work was paying attention to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
tuning in to yourself and your own body in a way that's more present and mindful, and saying, what is it that my body needs or wants right now? And from there, what do I want to give it? And then how can that be healthy? So it's interesting that you settled into this word of like, now I can control my vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what I hear you saying is now I know how to be in relationship with my vagus nerve.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I know how to be in relationship with my body and with my food, because we can't
Yeah,
really separate those two. We need food to survive. So
right.
we want to
Mhm.
have, this beautiful, wonderful relationship that is giving and nurturing, and not the
Mm-hmm.
relationship that's like beating you down or making you feel shameful or stupid, or whatever relationships can be negative on there. So
Yeah.
that's exactly it. And that mindful awareness piece, that was really the cornerstone of all of it. In order to manage my stress, for the first
Mm-hmm.
time I started meditating. And up
Mhm.
until this point in my life, meditating was definitely this woo woo thing. And like, oh, only people, in caves on mountaintops meditate. It
Mm-hmm.
was not something that I thought of as this real therapeutic
Mm-hmm.
treatment.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of dabbled with it at first, but then it just felt amazing. And the ability to meditate, people think that we have to have an empty mind, and they say, oh, I can't meditate because my mind's too busy. And the purpose of meditation is not to empty the mind. You will never stop the chatter. Our brains
Mm-hmm.
are computers, they are problem solvers. They want to gnaw on things
Mm-hmm.
until they have a solution. So the chatter
Yeah.
will never go away. But through meditation, we learn how to calm that chatter and to pick and
Yeah.
choose which voice is relevant and matters at the time. So it's a
Yeah.
way of, managing that flow of information in a calm way that helps calm the
Yeah.
nervous system. So,
Yeah.
so I went for a walk. I'm sitting on a log. I'm in the middle of this beautiful forest and I'm meditating. And all of a sudden, this word mindfulness just jumped across my brain. And I was like, oh, mindfulness, mindful eating. I wonder if anybody's ever thought about this. And I went
Yeah.
running back to the house and I was just energized by this new concept I was bringing to the world. And then I Google it and mindful eating. Oh yeah, people already did this. But that was good for me because a lot of people have already done a lot of the work in understanding what is mindful eating, how does mindfulness relate to food. I didn't have to
Mhm.
start from scratch to get this, brand new concept out to the world.
Yeah.
And what I learned through mindful eating is that with mindfulness, it really just means pay attention, be aware.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
where mindful eating comes into play is that you are then being aware of what you're eating.
Mhm.
But I like to take it a little bit further. And I say, be aware with intention. So pay
Mhm.
attention with intention because you can
Mhm.
absolutely eat a bag of Cheetos mindfully. You absolutely can.
Yeah.
But that isn't really the nutrition that your body needs.
Mhm.
That's not what your brain or your gut or your heart needs.
Mhm.
But absolutely, you can savor it, you can enjoy it, you can eat it very mindfully. So you need
Yeah.
to have the intention behind it of why am I eating this food?
Mhm.
Right? Am I doing so for energy? Am I doing so for a coping mechanism to overcome some kind of trigger? Am I
Mhm.
doing it for enjoyment and celebration? Out for
Mhm.
friends, enjoying your time. Am I
Mhm.
doing it because it's there? I'm bored. I have nothing else to do.
Mhm.
Right? It's
Yeah.
offered. You're at a party and there's a buffet of food. Like we eat for all kinds of reasons. So if
Mhm.
we have that mindful intention to understand what's going into our body, we can also
Yeah.
understand the way that it impacts our body because now we have this
Mm.
relationship of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And from those questions, mindful, why am I eating this?
Mhm.
Then I think there's a secondary question that comes up if I'm being mindful, right? Is this going to give me what it is I want and what it is I need?
Exactly.
What it is my body wants and what it is my body needs?
Mhm.
And from
Yeah.
there, right, logically, behavior, there's an invitation for behavior to change.
Yes.
Because if I'm looking to feel satisfied, I'm going to get to the end of this bag of Cheetos and probably not be at that goal,
Yes. Hmm.
right?
So that's that
Yeah.
intention piece. What is
Yeah.
the goal? You do have to have some external knowledge as well, right? We
Hmm.
do need to know there's a vast difference in how you eat to run a marathon versus how you eat to do a binge watching of Netflix. Two different
Hmm.
kinds of marathons, vastly
Yeah.
different diet. So you do need to understand externally what is my goal, what is my purpose in nurturing my body in what ways. We will need to nurture our bodies differently when we're pregnant than when we are raising our children than when we are going through menopause, like if for women
Yeah.
specifically. Sorry, men.
Yeah.
So we need that external knowledge coupled with the mindful awareness in order to
Hmm.
have that just viable relationship with the food that goes into our body and how we utilize it best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering with mindful eating, if you have the intention, and maybe the intention is, I want to nourish my body and, make sure that I'm taking care of myself in the best way possible. But sometimes is it okay to have the intention, like, I'm going to go to a movie and I want to eat the buttered popcorn and have the M&Ms from the snack bar because my intention is I just want to enjoy this and be in it. Is that okay?
It's absolutely okay. What you're wanting is that a relationship that you do give yourself permission. You give yourself permission, not a diet book that's telling you what to do, not some 24-day weight loss plan, not some, guru on Instagram or something. You are the one that has made that decision. But the important thing to understand, and kind of the nuance between eating in a good relationship with food and eating, emotionally, or eating in a bad relationship with food, is really, how do you feel about yourself afterwards? If you
Mm-hmm.
go to that movie with the intention of eating the popcorn and enjoying it, and you enjoy the people you're with, and it was a fun, wonderful evening, that's great. You gave yourself permission to enjoy a food and an outing. But if you go to that same thing and now it's, oh God, that popcorn smells so good, I'm going to get some, I'm going to eat it, I'm going to eat the whole bag. And then you get home and, oh, my diet's blown, or why did I do that? Or I actually don't feel good after I eat corn. Why did I eat corn? If
Mm-hmm.
there's any
Mm-hmm.
feelings of guilt and shame around your eating, then that's a great indicator that it is time to pause and reflect on your relationship with food. Because food
Yeah.
is a wonderful thing. We should not feel guilty for what crosses our lips at any time,
Mm-hmm.
because we need it to sustain life. We need it for a number of reasons in our body. And quite honestly, food is one of the only completely sensual things in this world, because you can see it, you can taste it, you can hear it, you can touch it. There's very few things you can taste to give you those senses, right? Ideally, you're not going around licking people or licking the car,
Yeah,
or
you might get in
as
trouble
you go
or sick.
shopping by
Only the
tasting
people I
the
really like.
right. Yes. I mean, right. So it's really, one of the few things that engages us, and it's sensual, obviously engaging the
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
senses. So you should
Mm-hmm.
allow yourself to savor it and feel enjoyment with your food,
Yeah.
whether it's a cucumber or it's a bag of popcorn, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
is. Just as long as you have the awareness that, okay, I am going to eat this popcorn, has a little bit of nutrients in it. It's mostly going to fill me up, but I'm probably going to be hungry again because it's not a nutrient dense food,
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm going to eat a broccoli salad, which has a lot of nutrients and vitamins and minerals in it. And that's going to sustain me longer. And if we're talking about emotions, our body, in order to manage the neurotransmitters and hormones that are related to our creating emotions and feelings, it primarily needs proteins and it needs vitamins and minerals. So if we are, constantly binging on snacky type foods, which we
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of in the American standard diet, then we're missing out on all those key nutrients that are feel good foods. They put
Mm-hmm.
us in a good mood. Only because we're lacking nutrients do we feel these negative emotions. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I got off track a little bit, but yes, the importance is that you can give yourself permission. Just really understand why that food is crossing your lips. Did
Mm-hmm.
somebody tell you to do it, or did you tell yourself to do it? And why did you do it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or is it a go-to to numb? I just had a conversation with someone who was talking about that he will, when he gets overwhelmed, he emotionally eats. That's when he's like, I'm straight to the pantry and I can't stop myself. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
so overwhelmed that I eat until then I feel terrible about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, do for someone who does something like that, because I think that's a lot of people, that people feel triggered by something, or they feel stressed, or they feel overwhelmed, or they feel sad or bored. And it's like the automatic. Is there something that they can do in that moment that's kind of like a little speed bump to get them to stop and think?
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 techniques that I like the most. The first is really, he said that he, couldn't stop himself. Okay, so there's a
Yeah.
forward movement to the cabinet. Keep forward movement away from the cabinet and just keep moving. So,
Mm.
movement exercise is a beautiful way to kind of bisect that desire for something that you've been doing. Everyone needs to keep in mind that we have habits, and habits are created out of a necessity to make life easier for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to food and emotional eating, we have created a connection, a bond of food with changing a situation and changing a feeling, because we didn't want to feel that way at some point. That could have happened all the way early in your childhood. You know, you failed a test and your mom's like, oh, here's a cookie, it'll feel better. And now as adults, when you feel like a failure, you eat a bag of cookies. And that started in your childhood. That's a learned behavior that I do talk about in my book, of how we learn these coping mechanisms. But understanding how our brain works is important. Our brain is constantly problem solving, but it also has kind of this little, like, I don't know, filing cabinet system. And throughout our entire lives, it's been keeping little file folders of things that work and don't work, and helps us and doesn't help us. And at somewhere, that cookie solved the feeling of failure, and it went into the failure box, solution, cookie. But here's the thing. When that little filing box is found, it first has to go through our old limbic system, or old brain as it's called. And that is our regulation center for our emotions. But it's also the gatekeeper to our prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain. So this little emotional brain back here says cookie first, and it puts into motion your limbs and your feet and your eyes to go to the cabinet and get cookie without your brain even knowing about it, because it didn't go through the gatekeeper to the top of the brain. It gets to the brain after this part of the brain is satisfied. And now this one goes, wait, why did we do that? We weren't going to do that anymore. That's right. There's this little tiny time gap between what happens there. But it's completely out of survival that our brain does this. Okay. And I can get to that in a moment. I want to get back to the 3 steps that I use here. So the first is movement. Move. Because that automatically creates an impact in your nervous system that will change the state that you're in. And I love to think about our emotions as, actions. Emotion is energy in motion. Emotion.
Yeah.
So get that energy moving. We're not really in a society that allows us to move our energy in ways that we did many, many years ago. If we're angry, it's usually frowned upon to go out and start punching people. So we just bottle up that angry, and now it comes out in devouring a bag of potato chips as fast as we can. Right?
Yeah.
So we need to get out that energy. And whatever that movement looks like to you, turn on some music and dance, go for a walk, jump up and down, do some jumping jacks, whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily take very long. That's the great thing too. Do 10 jumping jacks, and that might be enough to offset that desire to walk into the cabinet. So movement is number 1. Number 2 is a technique called surfing the urge. So surfing an urge is completely pausing, just stopping for a moment. If your hand's on the handle to the cabinet, if you're holding the bag of potato chips, whatever it is, pause for a moment. Because again, we need time for that emotional response to get to the thinking response. And it's called surfing the urge because you have that urge to follow this habitual pattern, but you need a little bit of time to think about it and be mindful about it. And that sensation, that desire to immediately act the way you've always acted, will grow stronger. But just like a wave in an ocean, it's going to crest, and then it's just going to fade out into the rest of the emotional pool. But you got to pause and just sit, be comfortable with your ugly emotions. We'll call them ugly, but I think they're all beautiful because they're all part of us. But you got to just kind of sit with them and go, okay, I'm feeling really angry. That's okay. I can feel angry. I'm allowed to feel angry. It's part of who I am. And that thing that happened that made me angry, Own that. But that doesn't mean that I have to overeat or eat out of balance in order to resolve that. And sit with it a moment, and it will change over.
Notice how you're about to take that anger out on yourself and your own body with that bag of chips.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the guilt that comes after that, that's the cycle that we want to try to break. And we need to do that mindfully. And if you'll notice, even as I stopped to pause, to surf the urge, what did I do next? I took a deep breath. And that's my number 3 is breathing, which, also ties into meditation. But for me, meditation is a very intentional act of being in a meditative state and working with the brain. Breathing,
Sure.
that's just something we do. And if we breathe intentionally, we can immediately, with 2 or 3 deep breaths, calm the nervous system. Because a lot of time that action of quickly changing our food or changing what we're eating to change our mood, that is a fight or flight response. And that is a sympathetic nervous system response that is up here and, take care of something. You must run or you must fight. I can't run. I can't fight. Therefore, I will destroy this bag of potato chips. No, we need to take a deep breath, engage the other nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. And we can do that again, which is 2 or 3 nice deep breaths coming down into the diaphragm, into the belly. Because if we breathe up into the lungs, called shallow breathing, that doesn't change the nervous system. Shallow breathing keeps us in that sympathetic state. So we got to bring it down into the belly and breathe calmly down there. And usually I find with a couple of deep breaths, that triggers me to just want to keep breathing. And the more that I breathe, the calmer I feel and the less desire I have to destroy that bag of chips.
Yeah.
So those are my 3 go-tos.
Great.
Yeah.
Those are great tools.
Yeah.
I describe something similar when I'm with myself and when I'm working with people, the distance between, the emotional brain and what we want to have happen from the prefrontal cortex. A reaction is what's happening from the back, and what you want is a response.
Yes. Yeah.
And to fill the space between the reaction and the response, breathing.
Yeah.
Because then, like you said, do I even still want whatever's on the other side of that pantry? Or was I maybe just trying to soothe some feeling in myself that I don't like feeling?
Yes.
That you have to have a disruption to the behavior. So it's not just reacting and then putting it in and then feeling crappy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Smart.
also coach my clients when they're in a good mood state, you're feeling, balanced in a day, to write down things that they love to do, activities they love to do, friends they like to talk to. That way, when they're in one of these fight or flight states, rather than grabbing food, they can grab their list and they can say, oh, I like to color, I like to read, I like to call so-and-so, and pick one of those things on the list instead.
Yeah.
Then you get that change of emotion, doing something that is very personally to you, that you enjoy doing. But you don't have to think about it. You already wrote it down.
Yeah.
So you just have it ready.
What I love about that is when you think about the brain and, the left and right hemisphere of the brain, the left is very like, go, 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 do. And the right is about creativity and curiosity. And if you are in this like, kind of like the anxiety of like, I need to eat something because I want to self-soothe, you're not in your right hemisphere. So having that list in front of you, you can go, oh, I like to read, or I like to draw, or I like to talk to someone. Those are all like, can be curious and creative. And so it takes you out of anxiety and puts you into like a much more calming place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think,
Which really, this is all about emotional regulation. More than it is about food. What's fascinating to me as we're having this conversation is all of the like attachments that we as humans put on food.
Yeah.
When really what I hear you saying, and I agree that I'm learning these lessons myself, is like learn to manage your emotional intelligence. Learn to be in relationship with the emotional part of you. And you will find that things like food and also money and sex and health have way less power over you.
Yes.
Once you have control over your emotional response or reaction to everything that happens in your life.
Yes. You can't control everything that happens in your life, right?
But you can control your own body.
You
and how your emotional energy moves through it.
Yes.
That's what I think we learned from mindfulness and meditation. we do have the capacity to get aware of those things and to have more control over them than what we were led to believe.
Yeah.
But here's what I love
Mhm.
about food. It can be your ally in that emotional regulation, right? Too
Yeah.
often,
Say more.
right. Well, too often do we just blame food that it's the reason why I can't lose weight. It's the reason why I'm stressed out. It's whatever. We blame food,
Mhm.
right? Whereas
Mhm.
if we realize what food is, it's simply nourishment. Say, okay, so calories was not a food group. Calories is a measurement of energy that all food
Mhm.
has, right? A lot of
Mhm.
calories, a lot of energy. Less calories, less
Mhm.
energy. So that was a big aha when I was in my 20s, I think.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of energy. And when you realize that
Mhm.
about calories, calories aren't evil. They're just this thing that gives you energy. And how much energy do you need in a day? Most
Mhm.
people, they say, is around 2,000 calories. My
Mhm.
baseline is 2,200. If you're trying to
Mhm.
lose weight, I should do less than 2,200 for me personally. But
Mhm.
we're all around that 2,000 mark. So if we're aware of that, and then we do eat something that is 5,000 calories, and then we sit on a sedentary life, there's going to be, side effects that we didn't burn those calories. And if we
Mhm.
continually eat foods that are devoid of nutrients, right? We don't have all the vitamins and minerals. We don't have complete proteins. We don't have carbs. We do need carbs in our life.
Mhm.
Then the negative side of that, whereas calories might be more related to weight gain for people, the negative side of non nutrient food is dysregulation of the emotional system because we
Yeah.
need all those vitamins and minerals along with protein. We cannot make the serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, even the GABA, even the cortisol management, we cannot do without protein and vitamins and minerals. They work
Mhm.
together. The amino acids work together with vitamin C, D, manganese, a lot to do with vitamin
Mhm.
D and vitamin C, by the way, to
Mhm.
regulate our system. So if we eat the right foods, which I do list recipes in my book, by the way, if we do eat the right foods, then it becomes one of our best allies to
Mm.
help us feel better so that
Mhm.
then we're feeling better when the emotions and the stress kicks in, that we then don't try to grab the foods that don't help us.
Mhm.
A big reason for that is that we have a second brain in our gut, right? So we have this
Mm.
gut brain axis. And that food that we eat feeds the bacteria in our gut. We are actually more bacteria than we are human DNA. Let that sink in for a
Hmm.
little bit.
I did
So
not know that.
we have
No, me neither.
trillions of bacteria just in our gut, and it's on our skin and it's everywhere. We are bacteria. Okay.
Mhm.
So the bacteria, it wants to live, it wants to survive. And it survives by eating what we feed it. The bacteria can have good and bad benefits to our body.
Mhm.
But because it wants to survive, based off of what we feed it, that is what's going to multiply. So there's a lot of bacteria that, for example, love sugar. And if we feed it sugar, then it
Mhm.
multiplies. And that gut brain talks to our brain. These guys are
Mhm.
constantly in communication. And that gut brain tells the brain, I really like that sugar. That was amazing. And the brain says, you're welcome. And then they say, let's have more. And I like to think of them as the what is it? Horton Hears a Who. Did you see that show, Horton Hears a Who? And the little people down in Whoville, and they're screaming. That's what I like to think of the bacteria. They're down there screaming and they're saying, more sugar, more sugar, more sugar. And our brain's like, yeah, more sugar. And so we automatically, we are just on autopilot over here. We grab whatever has sugar in it and we feed those bacteria. But the
Mhm.
reverse can also happen. If we begin feeding ourselves more fiber, absolutely good bacteria that does good things for our body, loves fiber. And that's mostly, obviously, in forms of good vegetables and fruits. Grains
Mhm.
are fiber too, but, let's stick to fruits and vegetables as much as we can. That feeds the good bacteria, which then those little who's say, pick me, and they start screaming for more fiber. And then we automatically want fiber. It is possible to crave broccoli. as opposed to a muffin because we've been feeding the correct who's down a Whoville. Right? So we need to keep in mind that it isn't just us making these decisions. We have a whole
Mm-hmm.
host of bacteria that is feeding input all the time back and forth to our brain and saying how we feel, how's our immune system, how's our nervous system, how's our endocrine system, and it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly providing feedback. And
Mm-hmm.
so food can be our best ally in keeping our body in optimum health, and both emotionally and physically and mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. Gut intelligence.
Gut intelligence.
GI.
And there is so much work and research being done on the gut microbiome right now because of how significant it is. And, these bacteria, they actually make their own vitamins and hormones too that we can utilize in the body. And so it is really important what we put in our body. Food
Yeah.
matters, and good quality food matters. The more
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
you can grow your own food or afford food that is raised grown with the optimum nutrients, less chemicals on it, the better it is in our system overall.
Yeah. Less additives. I don't know what the point is that I want to make about what I'm going to say, but I found something really interesting in something that you just said a minute ago, which is about calories.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You said calories are just a measurement of the energy that is within your food.
Mm-hmm.
And you also said some of us eat to counter our emotions, which are just energy inside our body. I find that interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like you can either work with the consequences of the calories in the food you consumed or learn how to work with the consequences of the energy of your emotions that are already in you. You are at choice.
Yeah, that is a beautiful way to look at it. I too have not quite looked at it that directly, but I did just say a moment ago that emotions are energy in motion. So
Yeah, right?
energy from
That's
food
the
or
connection
energy
that I'm
from
making.
emotions. Yes, that's perfect.
Right. And so it's all just about energy and how you are in relationship with energy and
Yes.
how it's going into and out of and moving through your body in the meantime.
Yes.
That helped me square something up.
Mm-hmm.
What about the freedom part? Your book is called Food, Feelings, and Freedom. We've talked a lot about food and a lot about feelings.
Yeah.
What does freedom mean?
So, freedom to me was just that moment of realization as I worked with the techniques in the book and eating better for myself and
Mhm.
meditating for myself. The freedom piece was that I am the one that gets to choose. I
Mhm.
have complete control over me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to me, that's amazing freedom because I don't need to answer to another person about my health. I don't need to answer to a book, right? I saw and see, clients who are on diet plans or they're reading a 28-day weight loss challenge kind of thing. And
Mhm.
what happens in those is that, yes, you may very well lose the weight. A lot of people do. A lot of people gain that right back. Most people do.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
what happens is that you have a person who wrote a book, you have something external telling you, eat this, don't eat that.
Mhm.
And then when you do eat the thing that it says not to eat, because we usually do,
Mhm.
again, based off of habits and or emotions,
Mhm.
well, now we've broken a rule. Now we've done something bad. We weren't supposed to do
Mhm.
this. We are a bad person. And we feel the guilt and we
Mhm.
feel the shame. And,
Mhm.
oh, I guess, I've already blown my diet. I'll just blow the whole thing. I'll go on a binge,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And so and then we feel trapped because dang
Yeah.
it, I tried to do it and I failed again. And I keep failing
Yeah.
and I can't do it. And we get on this, hamster wheel of
Mhm. Yeah.
try, fail, right? And that's just
Yeah.
disheartening. But
Mhm.
once we start internalizing and asking that question of why do I do
Mhm.
this? Why do I feel this way? Why is my behavior the way that it is? And we find those answers, then we can start putting those answers to serving our better needs.
Mhm.
And now if I eat the popcorn at the theater because I chose to, I don't feel guilty about that. How freeing is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to
Yeah.
give myself permission to be the
Yeah.
person that I want to be and to live in the, emotional place that I need to be in that day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the freedom to me, is just the ability to choose based off of my own person and
Yeah.
knowing that those answers can't be wrong because they're me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I love that
It's not
answer.
an all or nothing. It is like, okay, I'm going to choose. And going back to the intentionality, like I choose my intention and then how I follow through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
will add to it, kind of getting to that place of freedom was also just understanding mindful eating. And mindful eating, there's no such thing as good and bad, especially related to
Yeah.
food. There are sometimes and
Mm-hmm.
always. And that's incredibly freeing, right? The fruits and
Mm-hmm.
vegetables and the proteins, those are always foods. The Snickers
Yeah.
bar and the popcorn and the Cheetos, those are sometimes foods. They're not bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're not bad for eating them. They're just foods that
Mm-hmm.
they don't do a lot for your body. So
Yeah.
minimize them. That's why they're sometimes foods. But you get to choose when
Yeah.
that sometime is.
Mm-hmm. Amber, to me, that is brilliant. Because I've been that person on the cycle, like since I was 11 years old, of try the diet, fail at the diet, try the diet, fail at the diet. But I think I would as boldly say to anybody who's listening, like, we cannot get to freedom without going through ourself. You are not broken. There is nothing in you that needs to be fixed. You are not bad or wrong. What you are is a human system that wants to be listened to
Mm-hmm.
and heard and understood and then honored.
Yeah.
And no diet can do that for you without you understanding those parts of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and then taking that back to, what do I want to eat and how do I want to eat and what kind of control do I want food to have in my life?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I have been
That to me is
working.
freedom.
Yeah. I've been working a
Mm-hmm.
lot recently on the concept of being as opposed to doing, because we
Mm.
are a society of doers. We do this
Mm-hmm.
and we do that. And, what are you doing today? How are you doing today? Those are the
Mm-hmm.
questions we ask. And I like
Yeah.
thinking it a bit differently. How am I being today?
Yeah.
What am I being
Yeah.
today? Because if I
Mm-hmm.
can show up in this presence of how I want to be, how I want to show up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I want to be a active adult woman, then
Mm-hmm.
my actions on my daily steps flow into that being.
Right.
If I'm being an active woman, then I'm going to go for my walk. I'm going to go for that
Yeah.
hike. I'm going to move my body because
Mm-hmm.
I'm being that person. And then the
Mm-hmm.
world starts to recognize, oh, Amber's an active person. I'm like, yes, I am. I'm being that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can, be comfortable with who we are and how we want to be in this world. And all the actions will
Yeah.
follow then. That
Yeah.
sounds very
I
simple.
love that. Who am I being
Yes.
more than what am I doing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Amber, you have a new program that you've come out with, right? Called Peri Powerful.
Yes, I am
Yeah.
developing it now. It should be launching very soon. So I have entered into that next transition into my life, which is perimenopause. And I'm very certain it started when I was 42, so 7 years ago. I'm not ashamed to say I'm 49. I'll say it. So
Yeah.
I have just been on this journey of how my body is changing, and
Mm-hmm.
completely obviously natural part of being a woman. And it started slow and then got harder and then got a little bit harder. And what was real eye opening to me was, one, how few doctors are on board with understanding women's bodies. So there wasn't a lot of
Mm-hmm.
information in talking with my doctors. I am so thankful to have found a doctor now that is very knowledgeable and very willing to work with me on my care.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also surprised to learn how many of the symptoms women experience is truly related to estrogen and the decline of estrogen in our body. And the problem with the decline of estrogen in the body is that our body does try to live in a state of homeostasis. So as estrogen declines, it's constantly fluctuating these other hormones in a state of, let's try to balance you out. So we have higher testosterone or lower testosterone, higher cortisol, lower cortisol. Like, we are literally all over the place. We are a mess. And we get a lot of symptoms that show up with that. And that's related to, lack of sleep, hair growing in places you don't want it to grow, or losing hair, right? We have the hot flashes, which are always known. Like, it affects everything. And I was on a journey of trying to understand my own body and realizing how hard it is to really find all of this together and to find the support in it. And so I've created and creating this group called Peri Powerful. And it is for perimenopausal women to come together as a community, share our stories and understanding with one another, listen to a speaker that is an expert on a topic related to our symptoms that we are going through to help ease those symptoms, and really just be in a place of community and education and growing together. So this is starting out as an in-person group community gathering that will be once a month here in Arvada, Colorado. But my goal and my dream is that this grows into chapters across the country, and that women everywhere can come together and recognize that this is completely normal, that you are not alone. All the stuff that you're feeling is very real. You are not making this up. You are not just whining about your life. This is real stuff. And we can have support together. And I'm really excited for kind of this next phase of myself to help women through this, partly because of my own journey of where I've been to. But this emotional regulation piece, when you're in perimenopause, is so critical, because now not only is, all these demands in life weighing on you, but the number one female hormone, estrogen, that should be there to help you, is on its way down to like 0% in a very short amount of time. So we are, we're at a time, especially me, I still have children. I'm running a business. I have to work and live at 100% of me and my energy. Coming back to what you were saying, Kasey, I need 100% of energy. And my estrogen says, nah, girl, take a nap. You only have 10% of energy today. And I'm like, no. So this group, Very Powerful, is for women to feel powerful in this transition and be able to recognize that it's okay where you're at and understand that emotional place that you're in, but also how can you have better means of coping with it besides emotionally eating or just sitting on the couch and not moving your body. Being there fully present for yourself as a transitioning woman.
Yeah. I love that you're doing that as a woman who's on the other side of that humongous edge of change in life. And where multiple days for many, many months, I felt very much in the dark and very much all alone. I think the community is absolutely the medicine. Because I don't know about you women, but like in my world, my elder women did not talk to me about this part of my life and what to expect was going to happen. And it's related for me to my relationship with food, because what started happening for me during my menopause chapter is my body started fighting back against me. Like, the way that you've been treating me all of my life is not sufficient. And now that we're going through this hugely biological hormonal change, I'm going to start fighting for what I need to get you to listen. And it's not fun times. It's uncomfortable. It's terrible. It's hard. There were times when I thought I was going to die. There were times when I thought, what am I even for now that I can no longer produce the world's children? And to be able to have other women having similar experiences, to just feel a little less alone and to have some of that get normalized and acknowledged and validated. And then also to the point that you started with, there are resources out there that can help us.
Yes.
and it's not our Western medical doctor.
Yes.
They are not educated. They do not know, and they do not have the resources. But there are medical professionals who, if you have the resources to pay without insurance, can help you immensely.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm so grateful that you're there and that you're creating this space for these kinds of really hard things to be talked about and normalized and helped with.
yeah. Well, and I will just add a little caveat. My medical doctor is a traditionally Western trained doctor, but she
Good.
is bothering to learn the research, and she's bothering to listen to her female clients when they're saying
Good.
all of this stuff is happening, and she's like, "Oh, I should probably know more about this." So I feel very blessed on who I have found and who's in my corner. But
Good.
I will say it has not been the norm with conversations around people.
Yeah.
Um,
Good for her and good for you. And that wasn't my experience.
yeah.
I did find there are medical practitioners, but they're different from my regular doctor.
Yes. Yes.
To go get the functional, integrated, holistic health perspective.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it shouldn't have to be that way, which is why I have this group.
Mhm.
And we'll have this group soon.
Mhm.
But you know,
Yeah.
I just one thing popped in my brain as I was talking about the importance of fiber, feeding the good
Mhm.
bacteria in the gut. Fiber also really helps us in the perimenopause stage. So even if you're not eating for your emotional piece, if you're just looking at what are my hormones and what am I doing in this transition, let's get in those
Mhm.
fruits and vegetables because we need that fiber to support the liver, which the liver is a
Yeah.
big part of the health that's going on in our transition. And I think a lot of,
Yeah.
what we don't learn, I'm learning, but what we don't learn generally about perimenopause are these pieces of, estrogen feeds every single organ of our body. And we rely on our liver a lot more now than previously in our stages. So we have to eat a little differently. We have to manage our movement. We may not be able to do, high intensity exercise anymore. That actually
Yeah.
can increase the cortisol so far out of balance with our low estrogen that now we are gaining weight and having health problems simply because we're really working out hard like we did in our 20s. Maybe we can't do
Yeah.
that anymore. So there's a lot of shifting and understanding that needs to happen around it. And you're right, Kasey. We don't have a community that talked with us about it.
Yeah.
As we were growing up, and as I became a middle-aged woman, I
Mhm.
haven't had that community around me, and I'm going to create that community now.
Yeah.
Great. I love that you're creating the community because it can be such a lonely experience. And when you're with other people who are going through something similar or the same, it just makes you go like, oh, okay. And you don't have the experience Kasey had.
Mhm.
Um, as we are getting to the very end,
Mm.
is there anything that you want our listeners to know about you or about Boundless or about anything that any services you provide that would be helpful?
Yeah, I think, but we didn't talk really about Boundless as my health and wellness center at all. So we're an integrative massage therapy and health center, and we offer all types of body work and including Reiki and health coaching, which I do offer through those pieces. And then we have yoga, and we just started some Tai Chi and Qigong classes too. So pulling in that breathwork piece into the main practice in there. And then we'll be hosting our Peri Powerful group through the group there. So what I really like in my business is that I've created this environment where we are looking at the whole person. We're looking at how do we have this mind body connection? How do we move our bodies? How do we breathe? How do we recover? And you can get it all in one place. And I think, the important things for your listeners is just, embrace who you are and realize that self-care is necessary. It's not selfish, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you're a busy working mom, taking time for yourself is more important than ever. And find those
Yeah.
places that give you that space to heal, the space to, experience what it's like to just be in your skin,
Yeah.
be comfortable with who you are, and give yourself the space to do that. We schedule our days with so much stuff. I mean, you should see my calendar. So many things are in there. But I also have scheduled meditation. I also
Mhm.
have scheduled my kettlebell workout. So make
Mhm.
sure you schedule yourself in your own life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Block it out so you actually honor it.
Yes. Yeah, because it's so important. And just breathe. That is the biggest thing that has made the difference in my life. And it's with us everywhere we go. We don't need special equipment. We don't need to change clothes for it. We don't have to put on makeup.
Yeah.
It doesn't care. You can just sit
Yeah.
and breathe and, remember to the mind. It is that record player, is that voice that's constantly saying something to us. So speak nice to yourself. Be kind, because the more that you speak nice, I'm worthy, I'm loved, that record player will keep replaying those same messages to you, and you'll
Yeah.
feel more worthy and more loved. And these pieces of emotional eating will be easier to overcome. Anything
Well,
that feels like it's difficult, just give yourself more love, and those things will be less difficult.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
yeah.
Right. We're on to our final question of the day. What are you grateful for?
Oh, what a transition. We were just talking about that.
Yes.
I don't even know how to narrow it down to one thing. Honestly, I am so grateful for the life with my family, and I have 2 golden retrievers, and they're so much fun. Today's a beautiful day, a little overcast, but I still think that that's beautiful. And I'm grateful to be here with both of you right now to talk about this subject and, how it can be improved and why all of this is important. I mean, there's so much to be grateful for, and sticking to that positive side of life is just one of the foundations that, kind of keeps me awake and keeps me going. I think it's easy and it's programmed in our brain to focus on the negativity. But if we can focus on the positivity, what we focus on expands. And so I just see more positivity in my life. So I'm just grateful for both of you right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're grateful you've been here with us.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely. You are a precious person. And I hear you sending an invitation out to the world that's like, hey, permission to build the rest of your life around yourself and your body. Make that the primary. Love yourself that much. You're worth it.
Yes.
That's been the underlying theme that has come through everything that you've said. And that's such an important message. And you're so right on. And especially for women, where we have come from generations where I think we've been led to believe or taught to believe that these are shameful things. You're taking the shame out of these things and normalizing it as part of the female human experience, and then making space for women to come together and heal and grow together in love. I feel really grateful, and my heart is really full of you right now, Amber.
Oh, thanks, Kasey.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you saying
All
that.
right.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, thank you for being you, and thank you for all you're doing.
All right, thank you.
SoulStirred listeners, thank you so much for joining us today as we bring you stories of growth in the human experience. We appreciate you, and we have a request for you. If you will take 30 seconds to do these 3 things for us. 1, follow or subscribe to SoulStirred Podcast. This makes sure you never miss an episode and helps us to make sure you never miss an episode. Head over to your preferred platform, click the SoulStirred Podcast show page, and click the plus sign or the follow button. 2nd, we'd love it if you could give us a 5-star rating while you're there. Finally, choose your favorite episode and share it with a friend.
We are so grateful to all of our listeners for your continued support helping SoulStirred grow and ultimately inspire others through authentic connection. Don't hesitate to reach out with ideas, stories, or questions. We are always eager to hear from you. Our email and social links are found in every episode's show notes. Until next time, keep stirring your soul and embracing your journey.
Take good care of yourselves and of each other. Bye-bye.